Hello, dental online trainers, and welcome to the Dental Online Training Sharecast. I'm your host, Dr. Dennis Hartlieb. Each month, I'll be talking with dental experts who are doing amazing work in the field of dentistry and talk about how they got to be where they are today, what their influences were, and their journey in the world of dentistry. And as a bonus, I'll occasionally throw in a few of my solo bonding sharecasts, where I share a little of my experience with you about what's going on in my practice and lessons that I've learned along the way. So tune in every other week to hear our latest episode. Hey, dental online trainers, thanks for tuning back in for our second part of our conversation with Dr. Bradley Olson. This episode is the second part of our two-part conversation with Dr. Olson. So if you missed the first part, go back and check it out on YouTube or wherever you subscribe for your podcasts. So sit back and relax and enjoy the second part of our conversation with Dr. Bradley Olson. So Brian Lesage influenced you to look at the AACD. Which was your first meeting?
San Diego, 1996.
I was 1 year after you. I started in 1997.
Yeah.
So what do you remember? What do you remember about the?
Oh, yeah, very distinctly. I went to this lecture about this guy who was lecturing on replacing a tooth in the soft tissue management of tooth replacement in the anterior maxilla. And this guy's name was John Coyce. And I walked out of there with, oh my God, this is a whole new world I just stepped into. I tell the story that I remember a guy poolside at the reception just chatting me up, talking to me like we're old buddies. Turns out it wasn't just any guy, it was Dennis Wells.
Oh, Dennis Wells. You listened to him on the podcast where you interviewed, previously spoke with Dennis Wells.
Sure, absolutely. And our latest lifetime achievement guy. And just then, I sent my first cases to my mentor because I thought, be good at this cosmetic dentistry stuff. Because, Brian and I were, we were parallels and we, I can do the same stuff Brian does. And back then in the days, those were slides. So you packed up the slide boxes, you sent them to your mentor. He sends them back with a 2-page letter with all these criteria listed on there. And I'm like, oh, this is a whole new world here as well. So
it was not 2 pages of accolades.
But the first sentence was an accolade. I'm sure your patient was very happy. And then
an accolade that we still continue to use in accreditation.
And then on we went.
We're sure you've made your patient very happy now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you remember the case?
Oh no, I sure don't.
Yeah.
That's funny. No, I don't. But I just remember that, I was like, okay, I get it. That, this is what we're going to do. And I just remember the letters getting shorter until I didn't get letters anymore. And basically a phone call saying, you know what you're doing. You don't need me now.
Talk about the accreditation process. What it was then, what it is now. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. The accreditation is, and we, it's the oldest cliche, and we've said it a million times, but it really truly is the journey. And I just gave you the background of that. It's wonderful to stand on the stage and get accolades. It's wonderful to wear the medallion all week. It's wonderful to have like the Academy Awards where everybody's cheering for you. It's wonderful to be in, if somebody Googles the AACD, you're one of the top names up in there of referrals. And trust me, that was worth its weight in gold, the number of referrals I got off of the website. People doing their homework, researching the kind of person they wanted to do that work. That was all fantastic. But what's undeniable is the journey of making you a better dentist. It's just, I can't even imagine anybody could sit with a lie detector test on them and tell them, even if they went through it and let's say they didn't finish it, or let's say they didn't pass all their cases or whatever, they cannot tell me they're not a better dentist afterwards than they were before they started that process.
I agree. My first case that I turned in, it failed. And I quite honestly, I didn't like the case. And unlike you, I didn't work with a mentor because I was too stubborn. And I was sort of like a test because, back in the day, the Academy of Aesthetic Dentistry had been getting going, and then the AACD came in. And, and again, with some arrogance, I'm like, well, the AACD, is this, what's this really about? Mm-hmm. And I sent in a case I didn't think was very good, and it failed. And I'm like, okay, All right. If the case had passed, I don't know that I would have continued in the AACD, quite honestly,
Yeah.
because
Right.
I saw so many faults with it myself. They found more faults than what I found. But it's like, all right, this is for real.
Yeah.
Um, talk about the case types, and then talk about accreditation itself, like how the examination works.
Yeah.
After there's a written examination, but the clinical cases. Talk about that stuff,
That's
because
a
I think
great
that's
point.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's great you bring that up because back in my day, I don't remember how where you were in the continuum of that, but in my day, you pulled all 5 cases together and you went in and you presented before a panel. So there was no written exam, but the oral exam and the presentation were happening at the same time. And of course, you didn't know what was going to pass or fail. So it was incredibly intimidating. It also wasn't anonymous. So those were the problems in there. So the case types are your one case type is 6 or more indirect restorations in the anterior maxilla, and then whatever you do on top of that. The case type 2 is where you have to take a single tooth or 2 teeth for incisors, and you have to match them to the natural dentition. Case type 3 is replacing a missing tooth in the anterior maxilla. Case type 4 is doing either a diastema closure or a class 4 restoration. And case type 5 is the same as case type 1, except that you're building the composite yourself. So it's a direct. So the idea of those 5 case types is it's really providing all the things in some shape or another that we all face if we're doing serious cosmetic dentistry. We see all these obstacles and having to overcome these in many different ways. What I always emphasize, because I've mentored now for so many years, but I remind candidates who are going through the process, I use the term board lesions with them often.
Huh.
It's not how heroic you are, because when you went in to take your boards, you didn't go in and try to do an MODBL, restoration on this patient. You found that, that tiny little class 2 that would be just enough to get you, an approval, but not tax you. And not that accreditation doesn't tax you, it does, but let's work with cases that are very straightforward in smile enhancement and work from that standpoint. So the beauty of accreditation now, Dennis, to your point also, is it's completely anonymous. So we as examiners go into a room and we have no idea who you are. We just judge the work that we see on the screen, on the 12 shots, and that's it. We have criteria and we follow that and we calibrate continuously. And so no one should misunderstand. It will never be an objective situation. It's always subjective. But that's also why we have 5 examiners for every case, right? Is because that dilutes a little bit the emphasis of one examiner seeing something that the other examiners don't.
I think it's one of the coolest experiences I've been around, being an examiner. You're down in the basement at the AACD. There's five examiners. You're not really allowed to speak other than to ask for an image to be reshown. Mm-hmm. And so for people who are thinking about accreditation, or if you're not familiar, there's 12 before images that you have to take, and then very specific criteria, and then there's 12 after images that you have to take, and then they're put up side by side so that the examiners can take a look, see what the before was, see what the after was. And then we have a worksheet, and the worksheet has about 80 different criteria, and you go through and you're looking at things as the midline canted, gingival health, and then it's scaled from -2 if it's minor, -4 if it's major, and if the blood is coming off the screen, catastrophic, it's a -8, and then there's no coming back from that. Yeah. And then there's a +1 for people who've done things that have it's so close, but they did this, and this is worth the extra point. What impressed me beyond the fact of how serious the accreditation was is how much in my experiences and being an examiner, how much the examiners wanted people to pass.
Yeah.
And I've heard it from many people, and I thought the same thing, that, they're just trying to keep it as a small, boys club. They don't want people in, and nothing could be further than the truth. When I was an examiner, and I've done it several times, every time it's, there's a conversation afterwards. If it didn't pass, what advice can we give to help them get better? Is this a case they should redo, or things to think about, or are there courses they should look at to help them get better? And if they, if they're close, there's a conversation, is this, where are we with this? And so I just think the whole process is just phenomenal. I can't say enough positive things about the accreditation process. And truly, you learn so much by going through the process. Like you say, it's the journey. And the award's great, but it's really the journey and the excellence that you learn about as you're going through.
And, Dennis, your testimony of your first case is a perfect example of what's trying to be done of a balance, because it's not a rubber stamp. It's not just like put some composite on the tooth, polish it up. Looks pretty nice. It's better. They don't have a broken tooth anymore, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've done a service. There's no questioning that. So if we had passed you, you'd have been gone, because you're the kind of dentist the process is looking for, meaning the counter to that is the dentist who really has more of a fixed mindset. And what happens is they put that first case in, and if it doesn't pass, they either have two things with them. One is either the system sucks or they suck.
No.
Either I'm no good, I'm not worthy, or the system's ridiculous. And so they bow out, and that fixed mindset doesn't get you anywhere. It's that growth mindset that is so valuable, of like, you took that and said, okay. Mm-hmm.
Amen.
These folks are serious. I mean, This is real. This is a real process. This isn't a rubber stamp. This isn't a good old boys club that pat you on the back and say, some nice work here, Dennis. You're a good man. Here's your accreditation medallion. But it's the balance of the other side of it too, because if you tear down everything you see, which, let's be honest, you can blow up any of our cases.
Absolutely.
If we really want to get nitty gritty, we can dissect them left and right. So it's finding that balance. It's finding that zone of excellence that we keep working on constantly and keep trying to improve.
One of the challenges when I started submitting, and then there was a long delay and blah, blah, blah. But my first case that I passed actually was the case type 5 with the 6 or more composite veneers.
That's impressive. That's usually not the first case most people pass.
But that's the nature of the practice I was in with I was working with Buddy Mopper, and so that was a big influence. So But when I look at that case, there's no way that case would pass today, because the level of dentistry has become so much more sophisticated. Our materials, our understanding. So it's sort of like going to med school 100 years ago was pretty easy. You had to learn about leeches, and that was pretty much it, right?
Some bloodletting, and you were good to go.
You were good to go. And so it's I think it's become more challenging simply because I think the bar is raised a little bit, because the dentistry's gotten so much better, and because of the AACD and other academies that have really helped push our dentistry to the next level. I think it's so. Anyhow, for those who are out there, and if you're not familiar with the AACD, I encourage you to attend the next annual meeting. I think it's San Diego next year, if I remember right.
We are San Diego. You're right. Yeah.
But it's a great group of people, and like you spoke of, Dennis Wells just sits down next to you and starts talking. It is the friendliest group of dentists.
I've told that a million times, Dennis, is people, the most like-minded people I've ever been in one setting, all trying to achieve the same thing. And, my offer to all your listeners is, I'm a retired guy now, and I'm enjoying I'm enjoying my new gig, which was my used to be my side gig, which is now my full-time gig. But, please have them reach out to me. And even if they want to discuss the process, if they want to figure out more what's going on, if they want me to look at a case, I'm more than happy to be engaged with your listeners.
Thank you, and we'll make sure we have Brad's email address in our show notes and stuff. So check that out. Well, then this is actually a great segue. Yeah. So, how long did you practice dentistry?
Almost 41 years.
Okay, and then you talk about your consulting, but I want to talk about that transition from practicing and then leaving private practice, because I think leaving practice at dentistry is really difficult for a lot of people. And I want to know how that was for you, and any thoughts you have about that. So talk about that first before you talk about
I started the process because I began to reach a point in time where I had kind of reached the place in my career where I'd accomplished the things I wanted to accomplish. I was, financially secure. It was a situation where it's almost like, if you're going to stay in the game, you're going to need to move to that next level, because I always did. And so I was going to need to leave that analog world and get deep into the digital world, where I was only scratching the surface of it. We were all doing the basic digital stuff. But, was I ready to make that leap into that next place in dentistry? I want to spend time with Sharon and my wife. I want to travel. I'd been mentoring in the AACD for, well, geez, once I got accredited in 99, I was immediately put on as an examiner. So in the early 2000s, I started mentoring candidates. So I've been mentoring for 20 years. So it's something that felt very comfortable for me. And so I said, you know what? I'm reading more and more and hearing about executives and business people and just people in general in life are looking to coaches. They want to have somebody there that helps them move to that next level.
Right.
And they have it within them. It's there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You just need that partner. You just need that accountability partner. You need somebody who challenges you a little bit, somebody who asks you the right questions. And so, it's interesting you brought up my consulting. So I'm actually not a consultant. I'm a coach. And there's a difference there. And the idea of coaching is that with coaching, what I'm doing is I'm trying to help you close the gap to wherever you are now to where you want to be. And I don't care what that is, if it's life, if it's dentistry. I've helped a young accountant get his CPA. We just set up through coaching the process and working that along, and he passed everything and he did great. I have a wealth management group I'm coaching. I'm interviewing with a nonprofit right now. And plus, no surprise, mostly my coaching is with dentists.
Sure.
And so what I'm doing is I'm just helping them. Where do you want to get to? What are the goals? And how can I help you see that you can do this and close that gap? And we just do that through powerful questions and through challenging and accountability and that type of thing. Consulting is slightly different because what happens when you hire a consultant, somebody wants answers. They want you to come in and say, here's a formula. Here are the things that you're doing. Here are the things you need to change. Here's a formula by which you can do that. Here's a script you can use. Here's the steps that you take. Here's how many days you work. Here's what insurance you take or don't take. And those are great. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
It's just different than coaching. Coaching is more about asking questions and having you get to that place. So back to your original question is I started doing that and started to realize that, this is something I'm enjoying. My body doesn't really need to keep doing dentistry anymore.
Right. Yeah.
It's even though I'd cut my schedule down, I gradually went from 5 days to 4.5 to 4 to 3.5 to 3. So basically when I sold the practice, I was practicing 3 days a week and I was still enjoying it, but I wanted a transition out. And that's what I did. I kind of made it a transition to where somebody else would come in. They would take over, do the things that, they wanted a more broad spectrum. They wanted a general dentist to come in. This was a private equity group I sold to. They didn't like the fact I was referring out endo, referring out surgery, referring out implants, and so they wanted a bigger picture, and I was okay with that. And so we transitioned him in and transitioned me out. And so with that, I just kind of turned the coaching that I was doing on the side into what I do now.
2 questions. So during that transition period, how long was that? Was that like a 2-year period?
It was supposed to be 3. It turned out to be about 1.5 years.
And was that a struggle going through that transition period when there's somebody else and the practice is changing directions and stuff as the person who sort of built the practice and stuff? Or were you just at peace with it?
Yes.
It was difficult.
It's challenging. It's challenging emotionally. It's challenging. And things really aren't going the way, we talked earlier about P's who are doing it right and ones that aren't. And this group started off doing it right and had all the right things, which is why I went with them. Mm-hmm. And they fired all the money people fired everybody. They fired the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the manager. Everybody got fired. They cleaned house and brought in a different team. And that changed the direction. And when that direction changed, that changed me as well.
Yeah. And
that's when I was like, you know what? You want something different. They agreed. They were like, you're not the guy we want. We want something else. And so we were in mutual agreement that I needed to move on.
My other question, when you're in coaching and you're coaching, like you said, an accountant, you work all over different industries. Are there common themes as you're coaching people? Like, is there certain stress points or stop points, or is there things that are keeping people from getting from point A to point B, or for where they're doing? Is there like commonalities that you find? Is it like humans are humans and this is this mental blockage or whatever? What do you see?
I see one of the greatest parallels to what you do every day in your practice, because you change lives, and you change lives because you change self-esteem and self-worth. Because when they smile in that mirror, when you took them from where they were to where they are, there's a leap. We've all seen it. You've seen it. You've seen it a million times. And that is there a greater reward in your practice?
No, I mean, and for me, I love working with adolescents, teenagers, missing teeth, bad shaped teeth and stuff, because it's such a difficult age. I think personally, I hated that age. I thought it was really challenging. I think most people agree with that. And if you can imagine having missing teeth, misshaped teeth, and then going through that age group and then be able to give them teeth that look natural and give them a smile that looks natural. There is literally nothing more rewarding, other than being a father. There's nothing more rewarding, I think.
And so that's my segue. My segue was I was doing that in clinical dentistry. I now do that in coaching. And I don't care if you're the big shot CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. We all have, the imposter syndrome. We all have our doubts. We all have our insecurities. And so if somebody can be a partner there a little bit in that self-esteem journey, it's huge. And so that's been a parallel for me. I've been able to watch that firsthand of, I've got a young dentist I've been working with now for almost 2 years, and to watch where he was then and where he is now in his career, it's nothing shy of amazing. And it's a win-win. He wins because he's growing and, going the direction he wants to be in. And I get the reward of just that same thing we just talked about.
Does it surprise you that the imposter syndrome is like throughout, so you're talking about, a CEO and you're talking about other industries. Did it surprise you that I think it's pretty common in dentistry. I know a lot of my colleagues and we talk about this all the time. Were you surprised to see that in other industries?
No, I actually wasn't. And, what's one of the greatest quotes is, what's the truest imposter syndrome is believing there's no imposter syndrome, right? I mean, it's like, if you're, on the surface, you have to give that appearance. You have to be the man. You have to be the woman. She has to be that badass CEO in charge and can show no frailty, show no weakness. We all know that's not the human element. That's not real. So undercurrent there, we all have it. I mean, like I said, I'm interviewing with a nonprofit. I've never worked with a nonprofit. I've never been on a board. I've never done those things, a board on a nonprofit. I've never done any of those things. And here I'm being interviewed to coach them and do leadership work with them. And it's like, yeah, that's an imposter right there, my friend. You guys need to know that.
My first dental practice could probably be described as a nonprofit, quite honestly. Sadly.
Right.
But you were doing a slow learner
for the world.
I was a slow learner, for sure. We often talk about influences, and you talked about Dawson and you talked about Coyce, the AACD. Mm-hmm. What else, as you look back in your career and you think, all right, these were the people that really sort of set me on my path? And we talked about Brian. Yeah. What else? What would you add into people who sort of helped get you, mentored you into where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go back to the AACD again. One of the things we talk about is that's just a group of people. The list of names, becomes endless.
Yeah,
the Michael Sussmans, the Betsy Bakemans, just the people I've been in and served in leadership with. Why would you? I worked with you just here recently in February. And what a joy it was to work with you. You were, just the way you took control of what we were doing, and you listened to everybody, and you were, I watched you, and I watched how you handled that committee, and I take those things back into saying, what are the skills I saw there that I can help mentor? What are the skills that I can use myself? How can I use that in my coaching? So I can't say there was this one, strike of lightning that happened, but a name familiar to you, and you've had him on your podcast as well, as my coach is Todd Williams. And so, Todd and I have some deep, meaningful conversations, and he's an uber busy guy, so it only happens, when it can happen. But when we do have it, it's it's such a great connection, and it just, rewards my soul just spending time with that guy. Awesome. And so, but again, that's just part of the, it takes a village, right? It takes all these different interactions and these people, and also the ability, which I've been very good, I feel in my lifetime, is to wash away the folks that just everything is gloom and doom and everything's negative and nothing's going to go right. And, it's just like, I can't entertain that. I need to be, I won't coach somebody who's not curious, who's not interested, who's not excited. They may not have any answers. They don't know what they want, but they know they want change. They know they want something to move forward. They know it in their heart, and that's all I need. Once I got that, we'll figure out the rest. All the rest of that will happen after that.
That's so cool. I agree. And if you want that energy, go to the AACD meeting, because there is no gloom and doom. People are so positive. People are so excited about the future of dentistry. Unlike, if you go to, I don't want to pick on a meeting, but, Greater New York or one of these big, large regional meetings has a whole different feel to it. People who have scarcity issues. And boy, I tell you want to be around with people who have great energy and are really looking forward to great careers in dentistry and do great stuff.
And they'll do anything to help you. I mean, you just almost to a person, if if you're shy, it's a little harder, but, just going up and saying, hey, Dennis, I just started a practice, not far from, where you had your first practice, and I'm having some, could I buy you a cup of coffee? Yeah. It's like the answer is always yes.
Yep. I would agree with you. Brad, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us. Any final words, any final thoughts especially for our young dentists who are, embarking on this wonderful, wonderful profession of ours? Any last thoughts?
Don't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Don't do it by yourself. There's people out there. There's mentors. There's again, back to it takes a village. I mean, I coach people, but I also won't be surprised to know that they have a consultant. I also won't be surprised that they know they have a therapist. They may have a mentor. I mean, these are all valuable tools in our life. And, we shouldn't be, in today's world, we should not be shy about any of that anymore. Find the help wherever you can find it. Reach out, make it happen. When I coach dentists, there is a little crossover. It's how you design a relationship, which is important. When I'm working with dentists, it's a little different because there is a little mentoring will sneak in there. There's a little consulting can sneak in there. Those things can happen simply because I'm this older guy who's been around a long time, and many of them are younger dentists.
Right.
But even I also coach an older dentist who's really what you said earlier. They're trying to figure out how to transition to the next part of their life. So all of that, just find help, find a team, find help, find connections. And of course, your folks already, to some degree, have that. They're engaged with you, and they're engaged with what you've put together, which is, thanks for sharing with me before we started here. It's like what you're doing is such great stuff, Dennis. I wish you the best. Keep doing the great stuff you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. Brad, what is your coaching? Well, go ahead and tell us your coaching email address so people.
Sure, yeah. So it's pretty simple. It's B. My first name is Brad, so the letter B, and then Olson, Olson, coaching at Gmail. So
B Olson coaching at Gmail.
Yep. Perfect. Pretty simple. Don't be shy. I'm more than happy. I'll answer your questions. I can answer them. And it doesn't even have to be you don't have to enter into a formal coaching agreement with me. If we are going to do that, that's great, because, there's policies that go with that. There's steps that go with that. There's, releases where, it's complete confidentiality. All those things have to be put in place to have a relationship. But just to ask a question or to, kind of test waters, feel free to do it. I'm always there.
Perfect. Can't thank you enough. This has been fantastic. It's so funny. In our world, we get to know people. And I started doing this during COVID because I miss my friends. And so first person I called was Jim McKee, and I called up Jeff Rouse. And then we started talking like deeper stuff. And it's like, oh my God, for me, this is like just hanging out, getting some coffee and getting to meet with friends, and then just talking about stuff that we'd never have time to sit down and chat about. So I'm so thankful for you being open and vulnerable and talking about your experiences and stuff. And this is, I think, just great information for young and mature dentists. I'll call myself mature dentist. Sure. To be able to, put into their life and into their practice. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
All right, dental online trainers, that is it for us for this Sharecast. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Brad Olson, now Coach Dr. Brad Olson. And until next time, Years for Better Dentistry, I'm Dr. Dennis Hartlieb. Well, thanks so much for listening or viewing our Sharecast today. If you enjoy this and you want to get more information from Dental Online Training, then check us out at dothandson.com. That's one word, dothandson.com. And hey, be sure to share this with your friends and colleagues, anyone who you think might benefit from this Sharecast. And please be sure to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoyed our conversation. This podcast is edited by Luna Clark and includes original music by Chris Peterson. And again, thank you for listening. Yours for better dentistry. I'm Dr. Dennis Hartlieb.